Wow, that took ages to start. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are truly honored to have, well, uh, droning, RC, aviation, lots of Ings heroes on board. We've got, I'm not sure, I'm never sure which way round this screen works, but we've got Dr. Andrew Tridge from the Ardupilot project, and we've got Josh and Austin from Flite Test, who've just achieved an amazing thing. We've got, there's Ian. Ian's joined out, and Louis here. Ian's got his, it's not summer in the UK, so he can wear a scarf. And Ian Hudson is from Bradford, and they've won an exciting thing this week. But let's start with the guys from Flite Test. What an honor. And let me point at, and I can never do this right. See that boy there, my son Dan, he adores, I've watched Flite Test, of course, since forever, but he tells me from when he's about, he's 14 now, from when he's about 11 he really got into you. He's made your planes, he watches every video, and he loves it, and I love it as well. And what you guys have done with Flite Test so far has been amazing. It's been bob on, and you perhaps, I will go as far to say, are probably saving the industry in a little way. I think you are anyway. So anyway, tell us all about your air park, World of Flight. Well, what's that all about?
I love the fact that you just pointed towards family and talked about it, because that's what the air park is going to be for. One thing that our heart's desire is to make this hobby, make flight in general, a tool to do something special, something bigger. And it was fun, doing content, creating planes that are cheap and economical to build that you can crash and fall in love with building as well as flying. Those are all things that will always be part of us. But one thing that's always been missing is our ability to be able to interact with our FT family and to be able to engage them, and also give them the opportunity to engage each other. And so for the longest time, it's been a dream to make a location. If you're going to call someone a family, they have to have a home. And the idea was to find a location where that home could be at a place where they could go whenever they want and freely be able to fly together, have fun together, and also we could have fun and fly with them and also do content with them.
And so how's it gone then? Has it worked? Are you struggling?
No, no, we've been blessed. The whole campaign has been running fantastic. The way we ran this is kind of like in 3 different goals. One thing was to cast the vision, to show the land, and we were able to secure the land, but if it's going to stay a golf course, it's really not a FT headquarters. We have to change the land, and that costed money, and unfortunately, it was beyond the means of my wife and I to be able to do this. So we decided to do a crowdfund, and it went wonderfully. Thanks to this guy right here doing a great job running the campaign. We were able in just 5 days to be able to raise enough money to secure the land and take that revenue and turn it into the new headquarters. But now we're at the phase where we're at phase 2 and 3, where we're actually going to be still continuing to raise money, but we're going to be putting in runways, FT Clubhouse, which will have a hobby shop, a build room, a maker space, and all the amenities needed to be able to have people kind of go there, hang out, and have a lot of fun.
Well, congratulations. You've done really well, and it's well deserved. It's going to sound, I don't know, ungracious, but I'm impressed, and I love what you guys do. And I think
I really think what they do, not only on the videos but with this air park thing, it's something that should be replicated all over, because what they do is something that will bring more people to the hobby, and let's consider this as a hobby thing, and with that bring more people to know and be aware of the safety regulations and to repair the things that they broke from the hobby shop, the ready to fly stuff. And that's very important. I'm looking at Josh now, and I've crashed you so many times.
I love that.
But it's great. It's great, and the model, and you've been so open about that. It's great to see someone doing such a good job and being open and to all people and what you guys do. It's very commendable what you guys have been doing all over. So in the name of the people that I know and are fans of Flite Test, thank you guys, because your job is beyond I've already built some of your planes too, so it's great. Your job.
Well, thank you. If I could give you a hug through the computer, I would right now. One of the things I can't tell you, you nailed it on the head here. We don't want people just to think that this is the one location. We want to show the community and all the flyers out there. We want to show them a pattern that can hopefully be repeatable, not just in Ohio where this will be, but also in other states, other countries. Because the best things happen when people fly together, and you got to make space for that. And you mentioned, just teach people how to fix those planes, how to take a bad experience and turn it into a good experience. That can't be done by buying something on Amazon or Banggood. It has to be done through engaging people one-on-one. And something amazing happens when you get those two people and someone teaches someone how to fly or someone helps someone fix a plane. There's a friendship that's kindled there. And also they take away the sting of a bad memory and they replace it with a good memory. So it's really special to see, how the community's come out and supported this vision. And there's also a tremendous amount of trust. We are very upfront with the fact that this is an initiative where we're buying land and people are contributing to seeing a vision fulfilled. And they're trusting us with their funds, their times, their knowledge, their support. We don't ever want to take that lightly, and we don't as a team. We're committed to really making sure we try to knock this out of the park the best we can. And that along the way that we take the feedback and we take all the insight that our community has to offer and we apply it there. Because we really want it to feel like a home. We want people to celebrate this as this is their home. And I think the more people think that way about this hobby, the more things like the safety regulations, the more things about the expenses, helping people get in the hobby, those kind of iron themselves out as we go through that process.
Fair play to you. Now, just before we started chatting, Dr. Andrew Tridge mentioned that he was using one of your planes. And what were you saying about that, Tridge?
Sure. So I'm sort of wearing a couple of hats. One is Ardupilot, and do a lot of the core development for Ardupilot. But also, I got into the hobby through a group called Canberra UAV, which it was a team to enter the Outback Challenge competition. And so we've entered it the last 6 years. So it's every 2 years, so 3 times. This year we are looking for an aircraft to act as the radio relay aircraft between what's called the retrieval aircraft that does the long distance flight and the landing to collect the blood sample to rescue Outback Joe. And then you need a radio relay aircraft that's going to allow you to get the long range for your telemetry. And so we happen to be looking at a flight test Kraken for that. So we're hoping to do the first flight on the Kraken's been flying for a couple of weekends now, but we've just put a little tiny autopilot, because another thing we've been doing in Ardupilot is supporting some of these really tiny autopilot boards. So this is a Revo Mini, absolutely tiny little thing. So we didn't support that until recently in Ardupilot. We only supported the larger boards, and so we've just added support for these little tiny teensy boards the size of your thumbnail. And we've got it fitted to the Kraken, and it's ready for first flight this weekend. So we'll see if it survives.
That is fantastic. Can't wait. Please share some pictures and let us know how that journey goes. Kraken's
sure. Yeah, it's great fun. We've already been flying it a bit, and with great big wheels on it and little wheels on the edge of the wings. And it actually tracks. It's got to be able to take off in pretty high wind. Okay. And because the competition runs up to 25 knots wind at the ground. So in the air, it could be 30, 35 knots. And it often is windy in that part of the world in Dalby. So one of the things we need to work out is how it's full autonomous. It has to be full autonomy. So you press the button at the start, it does a full hour mission, retrieves the blood sample, comes back and lands without you touching anything, right? Wow. And so we need the plane, when the Kraken takes off, we've got to arrange it so that the Kraken isn't going to get blown away by the wind. And so we're thinking maybe retracts on the wheels so that it lays flat on its belly, or a big lead weight or a house brick underneath with the servo release. So when it goes for takeoff, it releases the house brick with the servo. Because otherwise, because the relay plane doesn't take off until well after the mission starts, because it doesn't go as far, right? And we just don't want it to then get caught by the wind and flip over embarrassingly, and be out of the competition because of a gust of wind. And it is a very big wing, and it is really affected by wind on the ground. So anyway, it's I had no idea you guys were going to be on the call today, but it just so happens that we're putting this together at the moment, and we've been having a lot of fun with the flight test planes, and they're just they're just great, practical, fun designs. So we love it.
Well, meet the world that you built one. Best of luck to you too. I'm excited to see how you do with that. I love that.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll post a video, no matter how it goes. But it's a lot of new code because it's a complete. We're porting Ardupilot to Shibios, so complete new RTOS underneath it. So there's a lot of new code going into this flight, and so of course there's a great possibility of crash and burn, but that's part of the fun.
And your Tridge this weekend, and g'day Tom, I see you there now. You'll get used to that g'day thing down there. The reason you're flying it this weekend is because it'll be part of the Unconference that you guys are having.
Yeah, that's actually a little bit coincidental to the Kraken, but we've got the Unconference. So this started last year when Randy McKay, who's the lead for multicopters in Ardupilot, happened to be coming down to Australia February last year. And he said, maybe I'll drop by your house. And then somebody else heard that he was coming, said, I'll drop in too. And then Michael Oborne from Western Australia said, he'll come over. We ended up with a conference, right? Just sort of accidentally. And so we decided to repeat it this year. So it's an unconference, so it's an unorganized conference. And we actually don't have an agenda for the conference yet, even though it starts in 2 days. We should probably do that this afternoon sometime, work out
there's a loose agenda.
Loose. We know roughly who's coming. We've got a list of people who are flying in. So we've got about 30 people flying in from all over the world this weekend to meet up for the developer conference. And we'll be recording all the videos and things. And we're doing a night fly on Saturday night with a barbecue, sort of a smoke of some chicken and lamb, that sort of thing. And then we're trying to put together like an ugly swarm. So Randy's frantically writing some new swarming code so that we can have this sort of mixed swarm of a whole bunch of different types of vehicles, maybe some fixed wing multicopter, all trying to cooperate together. It's all likely to end in complete disaster, but it's fun trying to put it together. And
it's unofficially called the Bigley Swarm.
The Bigley Swarm, yeah. The problem is that Tom's from Intel, and his company's just recently had a 1,200 drone swarm, and we're not quite at that level, so we're not going to be setting any records, but we'll be having fun.
I'm actually not necessarily part of the whole because it's mostly copter related, so I'm actually kind of out of the loop for the whole swarm thing.
Well,
and we're trying to work out. I'm sorry, what was that, Gary?
Sorry, no, Tridge. What got me was how did they charge them, and how just charging 1,200 aircraft ready to go. Forget everything else. Just charge them.
And you see them carrying them down the stairs where they've got these racks of them. It's like 6 packs of drones. That they're carrying. And there's these. It's just incredible that whole, and then seeing the snowboarder in the sky. I mean, it's just stunning. Yeah. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I was prepared to
what are they going to do next year?
I was prepared to be underwhelmed with that when they said they'd flown 1,200, because that 1,000 one in China was a bit. It was okay, but it was a bit. Yeah. But when that snowboarder went by, the
snowboarder was just absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. You got to admire what they've achieved.
We'll establish a record of different vehicles flying all together. So it's they all fly the 1,200 all the same. We'll fly 10 different ones. So it's a record.
That's right. Well, we're thinking that maybe the leader would be a little fixed wing, like a disco or something. But we're yet to work it out.
We were trying to get fixed wing into the swarm, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. We're talking to Randy yesterday about that, and he says it's probably not going to happen in the next 2 days. So, but we'll try. That'd be nice.
We'll see how we go. But I mean, the serious part of the conference is to, get all the technical people together to talk about the Ardupilot development and the roadmap for the next year and what we're doing. And the swarm is just entertainment really. But we'll mostly be talking about the new developments that we've got coming up in Ardupilot and what we've been developing in the last year. Because there's a lot of new code going in, a lot of new features going in, and so we've got plenty to talk to each other about.
And just to cut back to the Outback Challenge a little bit, it's quite involved. As you said, it is hands off the. This year, it's hands off the keyboard from once you hit return.
If you want the grand prize, it's hands off. If you there's 3 levels of prize money this year, and to get the grand prize, like it's 50,000, I think the grand prize, you have to be both completely autonomous, so you can't touch the keyboard or mouse the entire time, which is really problem for someone like me who likes to be in control. I mean, not touching my keyboard for an hour, you know, I'm likely to be shaking by the end of it. But the other part is dodging other aircraft. So they're going to have virtual aircraft in the airspace, and your aircraft's got to dodge around them in the mission. And of course, the telemetry, you've got to maintain networking the whole time. So I'm betting that no one's going to complete the challenge this year. But the grand prize, I think there's a very good chance that the lesser levels are prized without the full autonomy, just because it's harder than you think to actually have an aircraft do such a sophisticated mission without any operator intervention whatsoever. And it's so hard to make that judgment call.
Sorry, Tridge, what sort of distance you're talking about again?
We'll be flying at the total distance round trip would be somewhere around 60 to 80 kilometers, but it depends a bit. We don't have the actual mission boundaries yet, right? And it can vary a little bit. Plus, it depends how much you have to dodge other aircraft. That adds distance. And it also depends how much time you spend in the search pattern, because you do this sort of, we do a cloverleaf search pattern to, it cancels out some of the systematic errors by doing a cloverleaf pattern in the search area to come at the target from different angles. And that adds extra distance because it's a fixed wing aircraft. It can't just turn on a dime. So it ends up, turning around a bit longer distance.
And the spotting of the, oh no, it's not spotting this time, is it? It's landing next to the farmer and he's going to come across and...
Yeah, you still got to spot it because this year it's different. They've got a target. Basically, the backstory is this farmer is again stuck in a flood, right? And he's got a inkjet printer, and he's also obviously got a needle to take his own blood sample, which is a pretty resourceful farmer. This guy, why he needs our help, I don't know. So he's printed out a A2 target, right, using his A4 printer by piecing together pieces of paper and a coloured target. And that was pre-prepared by the local fire service. They sent out a file for him to print out in case of emergency. And then the plane has got to find that target on the ground, right? So we're just using a red square and a blue square back to back. So it's like a red-blue flag, if you like, on the ground with paper. And our onboard camera has to find that target in the search area and then plan the landing automatically and then land. It has to be within 10 meters of the target you've got to land, otherwise you're out of the competition. And you're not allowed to hit Joe, hit the farmer. Otherwise, one of the years you were allowed to hit them, actually. It's been different rules each year. And the first year, when there was dropping the water bottle in the first year and you had to not hit the farmer. The second time we did it, they actually removed the rule saying that if the water bottle hit the farmer, you lost points. And so we were able to, really try and get the water bottle close. But anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Love it.
Yeah, it's quite a thing. I don't know if you guys have been following it at flight tests, but I've followed it since the first competition, and to my mind, it is there aren't actually any other drone. It's the drone competition, and that's that.
The avoid other aircraft one reminds me of the NASA one that was out here 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, whatever.
There's a NASA
I've heard about that.
That ended up collapsing, but it reminds me of it. Yeah, but the Outback Challenge is actually the one that's really been, every other year, every 2 years they have the competition, and it really, pushes technology forward, which is great.
It pushes the autonomy side of things.
I am a bit concerned about this guy, Outback Joe. He's got the worst luck ever. This is like 3 times in a row the same guy, right? I mean, what's his luck?
Yeah, he probably doesn't run a very tidy farm, does he? He
definitely could. So Eddie, it's a bit odd over the years, where he had this power plant and he actually had a lamp, an infrared lamp in one of the years, and then they gave up on that. They don't have the infrared lamp anymore, But it's really basically the organizers of the competition are trying to push the hobbyist, self-guided model aircraft, UAV, hobbyist, planes in the direction where they're useful for search and rescue, environmental monitoring. They push it down that path into something where it really helps in so many areas. and it's worked. I mean, there's been a lot of time put in, a lot of code written to make the stuff we do in our hobby, you know, really useful in so many areas just by running this competition. And it's been such fun to be involved.
And we haven't got to forget that you wind the clock back to 2006, 2007. People weren't leaving the airfield. People weren't taking off, or they were.
Oh, yeah,
but you know, it was several years before anyone actually managed to get off the airfield.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
In 10 years, the change is so dramatic that now you know, automatically flying to somebody and identifying a target. Go ahead.
Yeah, plus the Spark Fund had nice competitions as well. It was a shame that they had to drop the airspace ones, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
But even last year, I mean, if you look at the videos of last year, nearly all the aircraft, you know, crashed out, you know, before even making it to the search area. There was only 2 aircraft that actually made it to the search area, which is 15 kilometers away via a circuitous path. So it's like a 35 kilometer path you got to use to get there. 2 aircraft made it. One of them got caught in a tree when they got there, right? And then only our aircraft was the only one that actually landed there. And of course, we lost our helicopter. Our helicopter fell out of the sky, almost, you know, hitting on the heads of the organizers. They were, I think they had to change their pants afterwards because it was like a big petrol helicopter, 50cc petrol helicopter, right? So these are serious things with big blades, you know, big carbon fiber blades.
You were going for bonus points on that, right?
And so here it was, we were hovering, the helicopter was the relay aircraft, so it's what the Kraken would be this year, right? So we used a heli that time. And this big autonomous heli samples. And it just so happened that the organisers, the place where we'd chosen to hover the helicopter as the relay, happened to be where the organisers pitched their tent. Now, we didn't know that they'd done that, right? We didn't know where they were going to pitch their tent because they weren't supposed to tell us. So it was hovering directly above them, and they had this helicopter. And then, of course, they hear that the sound stops. Oh, boy. You know, you don't want the sound to stop in a petrol helicopter that's hovering above you, right? And so the engine had stopped. And then it, you know, of course, Ardupilot tried to just shove the collective up and, you know, to try to, but, you know, that doesn't work. And it came down really hard, and just, you know, this big mass, 15 kilograms or so of helicopter came down really hard right in front of them. And so the organizers were just absolutely terrified, you know. And our fixed wing, our big petrol fixed wing, was still circling there, and it took them quite a long time to, you know, recover themselves enough to say, okay, we'll allow you to land the fixed wing and actually complete the competition, despite the fact you just nearly killed us with your helicopter. So that's the sort of thing that happens in the Outback Challenge.
I think you got their attention.
Yeah, we did indeed get their attention on that one. And yeah, that was quite spectacular. So you guys should come down, you know, Josh and Austin, you should come down, and, you know, there's bound to be mayhem. There'll be, you know, I'm sure you'll see lots of flight test aircraft down there, but it's a lot of fun.
It sounds amazing. I love how you guys are pushing it to the next level, but also giving people a mindset on how they can take a hobby and they can make it a profession, or how they can, you know, really make it a benefit to society beyond just the enjoyment factor.
That's right. That's right. Well, it is a benefit already. I mean, what you guys are doing with the young kids and, you know, teaching people and getting families involved, that's brilliant. That's helping society enormously, right? We're just doing it in a slightly different way. And really, you know, we do really want to help people with things like search and rescue and environmental monitoring. But when it comes down to it, it's a hell of a lot of fun as well. And, you know, going and flying robots and crashing them and this sort of thing, it's an incredible hobby. And you guys introduce so many people. We get people coming out to the flying field who, you know, they're flown the little flight test ones, and then we introduce them to some of the more sophisticated ones, or we add the autonomy to it or whatever. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, flying robots, that can go wrong.
Yeah, we're taking it to the next level too. You know, one thing we want to do is we want to introduce them to flight, but with great people like you, taking them to the next level. You know, showing them how advanced it can be, or how far you can push it, or just different avenues. Yeah. We really need that as a whole. You know, we're really good at maybe bringing them into the hobby, but someone needs to grow them and invest in them. And hats off to you guys for doing it in the really fun, unique way that you are with these kind of crazy, cool challenges. But also when you meet them at the flying fields, that's so important. That's the first experience someone's going to get, and it can make or break everything.
Yeah, I love it when little kids, particularly like we've had a 5-year-old kid flying my plane. The first time I tested this geofencing feature where basically it's you shouldn't be able to crash the plane, because if you dive it at the ground, right, it actually automatically pulls out and comes back up. And so I first tested that with there was a 5-year-old kid whose face was pressed against the fence, and his mum was with him, and they'd just been driving past the airfield, and the little kiddie wanted to come in and see, so his nose pressed against the fence. And I just developed this geofencing feature, which has a polygon thing around the flying area, where if you go outside that, it takes over and brings it back, and it also has a minimum height where it takes over in height. So I asked the mum, would he like to be the first test pilot of this new feature, and she said yes, he'd love to. And the little kid was bouncing up and down. He could barely hold the transmitter, right? It was a little 9XR, right, turnigy thing, and he could barely hold it because it was so big, and there he was flying it about, right? And of course he did the wrong thing, and it went down towards the ground, then it took over and came back up. But the look on his face when he's flying a plane, it's just incredible. It's such a feeling to be able to introduce a young kid to that sort of hobby. It's great.
It is, and this worries me. In the comments, the Ohio Attorney General's enforcement policy has been mentioned, and I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but this is my biggest worry about a lot of this regulation that's coming down the road. My biggest worry is that a lot of it's coming to facilitate things like drone deliveries and stuff like that, and that's all well and good. I suppose from SUS News being the drone side, I've got to go, yay, hooray! But unfortunately, I just worry. I really worry that there's the collateral damage in all of this rush to make a buck is going to be youngsters coming in, and they are the future of flight, and they are going to be, there is a 10-year-old out there now that's going to have the next amazing idea of whatever it is. We haven't thought about it yet. We don't know what it is. We're too old and duff to even know, but there's going to come out with something obvious. And if we start making it that youngsters have to be, for a lot of countries are going, you have to be over 16 to fly. That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. And then registered and this and that. It's just, anyway, I'll stop that rant. that's my rant.
The way I look at this is, it's sort of like the page of Elon Musk where he says, it's inevitable that we will have, green energy and whatnot. It's like this, space travel is not necessarily inevitable, but green energy must be, because we'll run out of fossil fuels and whatnot. So same thing with drone delivery. It's one of those things where it can be slowed down and stopped and come back, but it's inevitable. It should be very obvious that it is inevitable. In 50 years, it's going to be everywhere, and that should be just obvious. What happens within now and 50 years, depends on legislation and whatnot. But in 50 years, for sure, it's going to just be everywhere. Packages will be dropped off. People will be dropped off. It's all going to be, that's just the future.
We've just started actually in Canberra. There's a Google started doing some test deliveries, and one of the people at our local flying club, CMAC, was saying that he got dinner via a drone delivery for the first time last weekend. And it was interesting, his description of it. It was using that like 10 propeller Google drone. It's that quad plane basically, but with a ridiculous number of propellers on it. So funny thing was that they were ordering like burritos, and they could own, because there's only like 2 stores that are delivering at the moment. It's this test in the suburb in Canberra. And in order to get dinner for the parents and 2 kids, they actually had to do 4 deliveries, because you could only carry 1 meal. So the delivery only took a couple of minutes, but the drone had to go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Of course, they could have walked to the shop by then, but the kids loved it. They loved seeing the drone come and drop, on their driveway. And then, of course, they wanted to buy more. So there's 2 stores at the moment. There's the burrito store, and there's a chemist, or you call a pharmacy in the US, right? And so they then were looking through the list of stuff from the pharmacy, trying to find something to buy, and ended up buying some orange balm stuff from the pharmacy and got it delivered, just because the kids wanted to see the drone come back and drop the thing from the pharmacy. So there's this novelty factor, and it's sort of, at one level it's ridiculous, but another level it's like the future, and the two are colliding in this crazy. I don't know quite what to say about it. It's just sort of bizarre, but it's also fun.
I got to admit it. I would probably order a lot of burritos and anything possible just to see something drop it. on their doorstep.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
to
know,
see it show up.
Well, no, you'd be out there trying to fool it, wouldn't you? You'd be, putting something down on the ground to see if you could fool the camera, or GPS jamming it to see if you can get it to go at a tree. Or, I mean, they're probably not going to start it in your area because the aircraft just won't survive.
No,
For the record,
that's
do not deliver to Tridge.
no. That would be Bruce's area. I wouldn't deliver it to Bruce's area. G'day, Bruce.
That's
Good
true.
to see you, mate. How you going?
I'm going okay, mate. And yourself?
I'm very good. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi, Bruce.
Flash new office, eh?
Yeah, there you go.
I was about to mention that you have a nice new fancy house now.
I do, and there's no grass in the ceiling, so it's a bit echoey. I'm already getting that. Well, I'm used to the dull sound of a circular hut. What was I going to say about the delivery thing? The ubiquity of things, and eventually those deliveries the children won't be that interested in ordering them, and it's a bit like, and I've said it before, I flew for the School Me Phantom 3 Pro. They needed a photo, whatever. And when I was there, one lad comes along and he says, "Oh, I got a Phantom 4 Pro." And then another little lad comes along and says, "No, you don't want that. I've got a Mavic. It's much better." So already amongst children of 10, 12, 13, 14, a quadcopter is nothing new, or it's exciting. It's a great thing to have, but they completely know it. It's not and yet to us, it's like, wow, look at this thing. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm sure the ubiquity of drone deliveries will come along very, very soon. But I do worry. You were lucky, Bruce. You came in late. You missed my rant. They were all playing very nicely, and then I just blew it apart. Where should we go now? Well, I've forgotten what we were going to say. What we were going to talk about? Oh, I know we're going to talk about a man in a scarf who's not impersonating Doctor Who of several years ago. Ian Hudson, in the city of Bradford, you have your winner chicken dinner. Tell us what happened, Ian.
Yeah, indeed we have. So I'm wearing the Bradford claret and amber scarf. You can see it there in all its beauty. There we go. We've won.
Adford.
Yeah, because obviously I was on here a couple of weeks ago, and that was when the bid was in, and we didn't know what the outcome would be. I felt confident we had a strong bid, to be fair, but obviously you don't know these things until they're announced. But yeah, they picked. Well, there was supposed to be 5 cities they picked. In the end, it was 4 cities and 1 region, which was in the West Midlands. But I think it was. I'm very happy that Bradford won, given we were up against Leeds. And what tends to happen, and I think you have it overlap with Manchester in Lancashire, is you've got these bigger cities that tend to get everything when the rival cities go for it as well. So I was pleased for that reason as much as anything, because it just showed that they were looking at the strength of the bids and the details that were in those. Because I didn't know. About Preston, that it had got involved, and it seemed to must have put together a good bid, because they were the other northern winner. So it'll be very interesting to see what they come up with. But yeah, it's great that we've got it. It's funny enough, actually, there's a few links with people here, because I'm thinking that the flight test guys. I can remember when I started looking into Ardupilot, and that was when they made the Boxercopter, which was a toolbox that was with an APM, and that was flying about. And funnily enough, it looks uncannily like 3DR's Iris, but we won't say that. Yeah, so funnily enough, you see from there, obviously myself in Bradford and friends, we imported a 3DR Iris, so we'd have had probably definitely either the first or one of the first into the UK, and that was also the case obviously with the Solo. But so I thought there a few of those things that I'd even mentioned in the bid from the hobby side, because here in this city we have a strong hobby community, and that's something we're quite proud of as well, because that was one of the concerns we'd had when we talked about this a couple of weeks. Gary said, "Oh, surely every city in the UK will go for it because it's something to go for." And I thought, well, it'd be a bit sad if that was the case, because you'd want cities going for this bid that actually had a genuine passion for UAV technology, and I think we've got that here, and hopefully, well, I'm sure all the other cities that have got it as well have got that equal passion. So what this is about is it's the government, the UK government's put money aside so that we've got 5 testing areas in the UK now for drones. So it's to integrate drone technology into everyday use cases. So we'll see how that progresses. I'm hoping it will, as one thing, just get drones a lot more positive in the public eye. I think it's quite important that we get a more positive image. I mean, already I've read the comments locally from people that don't know about drones straight away. It's assuming that the council will be using them immediately to issue parking tickets to everyone. So there's been all these kind of concerns with people coming up with it. It's like saying no. That's not what it's about. I mean, for one thing, they're trying to get drones embraced and be positive. And if you made drones into traffic wardens, you would definitely not make them a thing that would be liked by society.
I know that one of the things that certainly London is trying to do is do not burrito deliveries, but blood deliveries and organ deliveries within the city. Have you a delivery? This fits into what we're speaking about. Are deliveries in your bid's future? Has that been part of your thinking?
Deliveries wasn't focused on too much in our use case because we knew already that Amazon's going down that line. So that there's other research already into that. So it would seem you were kind of trying to reinvent the wheel there. So it was more use cases. I think in each case, cities would have used use cases that made sense to them. So in our city, for example, it's built. It's a city with a lot of history behind it. It was built. It's built on top of a lot of. I mean, it's called Bradford, which I think was Broadford. It was built on rivers. So there's actually kind of tunnel systems that go under the city. And one of the things we wanted to do was to be able to send a drone down there and to be able to map them or check them. Because if you send a person down there, obviously there's a risk of injury or risk of life. And you've also got that with sinkholes. There was a sinkhole that happened in one of the villages in the district. And again, the council said, well, that can fill up with water if we send someone down there. It would be good if we had, effectively a drone to be able to do it. So it was kind of thinking about those kind of use cases that were important to the city, as well as coming up with some other things that were a little bit more ambitious. So it was a mix of what was potentially possible, plus, a few aspirational things. I mean, one thing that I would, you come up with some funny use cases when you actually start using drones. For example, in the city centre, you get a lot of pigeons, and I know there was a commercial operator doing a job in the last few weeks where he was using the Mavic, and it was attacked by the pigeons. It's like one of the things that would be good to investigate is what things could we actually counter birds with. I know like with rats, for example, you can do ultrasonic sounds, and that actually drives them away. I'm wondering whether there's something you can actually fit to a drone that would actually stop bird attacks, because that's going to be one thing where it would be a genuine risk if you were doing work around, especially historic buildings where you might have pigeons nesting.
I have seen that, if I interrupt here, in Canada and some other countries, that they're actually flying at the end of runways with drones to get the birds off. So before flights, they'd kind of go in between them so they hire a drone company to do it. So I've seen that being deployed.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect in that case, that'll probably be a bigger drone that scares the birds. But the trouble is, if you have a Mavic, it's smaller. They don't seem quite as afraid of it. It's the kind of thing where you would fear if it was to hit the drone. Take a prop out and that's it coming out of the sky.
Well, there needs to be a study done, doesn't there? When a pigeon hits a drone, how much damage? Bruce will do this. Bruce has done it.
We have a lot of trouble with birds at our local airfield here. We have everything from ducks to plovers to swallows, the whole lot. And I found that mini quads are incredibly effective at driving birds away. I don't know if it's the high-pitched screaming or whatever, the fact that they're so maneuverable and that you can fly them straight at a bird. And if you hit it, well, that's tough for the bird, but it's not going to hurt the mini quad. And we had a big problem with ducks last winter when there was a lot of rain and there were ducks. And ducks are a major threat to aviation because they're big and heavy and stupid, and they can fly quite fast. So I drove away a group of ducks that had been there for several weeks, and they just never came back. It was quite easy to do. We also had a big problem with magpies. Magpies were chasing models. Get the mini quads out, chase the magpies, they don't come back either. So we've basically freed up the airfield from birds quite effectively through the use of mini quads. And I was thinking, this may be something we should be approaching airport authorities about. Let's put drones in a good light. Let's offer to do some bird herding, as I call it, and get rid of them. It is really effective with the right machines.
And this also makes me think of a large military manufacturer over that environment who had a very expensive modification. And have you seen people flown with whistles and things on their model aeroplanes? I've seen that done, and they put that on the side of a Raven, and they called it an area denial weapon, because then when it flew, the thing whistled, and the enemy didn't stick the head up above the parapet because they knew that the thing was in the air. But I can't remember what they charged, but it was saying it was like a model aeroplane whistle, and they charged thousands of dollars for this aerial. Anyway, I'm moving it aside. Aerial denial thing. Now, I see in Bradford, I see that Fred Dibner's house has come up for sale today in the news, which is very important Bradford news.
I don't even know who he is.
Oh, I'm showing my age. You better go onto the Tube of the U and have a look. There's hours of there's your heritage there. You better find out.
Oh, okay. I'll do that as a task later on.
That's frightening. I have shown my age, haven't I? I thought you'd been right on top of that, and you could have had some.
Maybe it's just.
Gary, I love that. The Tube of the U.
I thought we could have some drone-related adage to go with that. Right, I think.
At first, I was thinking it was like the English tubes, but I was like, no, it's the other tube.
No, well, Fred Dibner, you want to watch a dedicated man. You watch him knocking down chimneys one brick at a time from the top. That's who he is. And that's your Bradford history. I'll teach you that from Africa. I'll learn you. So when do you start? In fact, from the questions, we'll go back to the flight test guys in a second, and the questions for them are when are you actually going to move? And there was another one there as well. I can't, but it was when are you going to do some hot wire cutting plans? But Ian, before we go back to flight test, when do you actually start running the project? When does the go button get pressed on it?
Well, they're already running forward. So obviously the council own it. So they've got a guy that's heading it up. So he'll be liaising with Nesta. So they've already gone down to London for a meeting. So that will be progressing, and I'll just have input as and when they need me to. My task, just as a sideline, is I'm just trying to get in touch with more drone pilots locally, trying to get them under a single Facebook group as well, so we can, liaise directly with the council. There was nearby Halifax, for example, where they had FPV racing in a car park, and eventually they got kicked out of the car parks, and then now without a home. So it's looking at, trying to get in touch with that group, seeing if we could house them in Bradford, because as it happens, Bradford's got a car park that's not in use at the moment. So it would be like those two things would fit together. So looking at things such as that. Funnily enough, just before the bid was announced, we had a local councillor approach a drone pilot who we're friends with. Funnily enough, it's his logo that came up when I signed on, because I loaded the video up to YouTube from him, so it came up with his account. But we have a railway tunnel that's from 1878, and the council is talking about filling it in with concrete. So, basically you lose all that history. And that's going to come in about £3 million to actually fill it in. And it's been worked out that maybe for £2.8 million, they could save the entire thing. And the whole community around there wants to use it as a cycle path. But they'd asked for some help with drones because people couldn't visualize it and they didn't understand how big it was and where it actually ran. So we actually used a drone to, fly up from the entrance, fly up at the other end of the entrance. And then for part of it, it would be too high to fly to capture it all. So that we cut to a map, and then, you just drew a line, and it all just cut together as a video. We put that video together over a weekend, and that's helped with that campaign. And it was good as well because the councillor came along, so we gave him FPV goggles to wear, so he was effectively directing the action. Well, the good thing there was that engaged then directly drones with a politician. So politicians often don't understand what drones are about. So again, that was straight away getting that positive engagement. And we're going to try and build on that to, get not just local individuals, the citizens of the town to know about drones and appreciate them, but get the council fully involved and politicians. Because I think once you've got politicians on board, it helps with future legislation as well, because we get so much knee-jerk and ignorant legislation that it would be good to have some pro-drone politicians on side.
And where should people try and get in touch with you, Ian, if they are in the area and want to be part of this?
If they're in the area and it's people that are into drones that want to get involved, let me just check whilst I'm on to you, because I've only just set it up recently. We've got a Facebook group and it's called Bradford District Drone Group. So if they look that up on Facebook, they can get in touch. And if anyone from a commercial angle wants to get involved with the council, where they want to do some drone testing, they can go to the Flying High Challenge website, and there's a section on there called Cities, and it tells you who the contact point is for each city. So obviously Bradford, if anyone out there has got some R&D they want to test here, that I'm sure they'll be more than welcomed here.
That's grand. Thanks very much. Well, now I'll try and put something in the bottom if I remember, but I'm very bad at remembering to do that. Let's jump back to the flight test, guys. So when do you anticipate the move actually happening to your new site? That's one of the questions from the comments.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, getting to hear all you guys talking about all the amazing things you're doing. You're all amazing. Holy cow. Really, really humbled to be able to talk amongst you guys. The crowdfund needs to finish first. We talked about earlier how we now have hit the 100% mark on getting the land. We're going to wait till the crowdfund ends, and that's going to be at the end of February, early March. And then once that does, we'll be able to see how much revenue has been joined and how many initiatives, whether it's the runway or the runway and the FT Clubhouse, can be built. We already have architects and zoning people and everything that have done all the environmentals and everything. So we'll be able to move pretty quickly to get the new floor plans drawn up and start the renovations. Our hope is by October that we'll see things really changing quickly, where we can actually start working out of that land. But possibly if the crowdfund is met early enough, we'll be able to actually even host some flying and have some fun open houses well before then, and let people see what they've created and what they've developed. Maybe in a not in the final form, but in progress.
I must admit, I did think when I saw you run it, it put me very much in mind of what Bruce was trying to run over there. And unfortunately, his local council weren't as far-sighted as Bradford Council. And, well, they didn't want to play, did they, Bruce? But look, you've got... I think you could go to your local guys and say, look, here's the local councils in England are up for it. Here's a whole crowdfunder in America that's made a similar thing to happen. Do you think you could go back and knock on their door, Bruce, or they'll still kick you out?
It's still the same old story. It's a bunch of introspective people who are too old to grasp this. They have the media opinion of drones. It's just like we're sort of, this is a forestry town. It's to do with forestry and milking cows and technology. Ooh, that's dangerous stuff. We can't have any of that. Ooh, drones. So now I've got a presentation at the council tomorrow. I'm going to put some of this stuff to them, but I really don't expect to see much change. The other thing is its personalities. As you know, Gary, I'm such an easy guy to get on with. I'm so diplomatic. I stroke people's egos. I finesse them. I schmooze. So
that's right.
People love me or hate me.
Yes, that's right. Generally hate. Yes.
Yeah. So, and the problem is, once you offend these people by pointing out their deficiencies, you can never regain that lost ground. So yeah, I'm stuffed.
But I think I tried to have an event over Easter.
Yes, but again, I went because we have a situation where the rules need to be changed slightly, and I've approached council. Nothing. So it's like, ugh, what do you do with these people? They talk the talk. They're just about to, they've launched a new marketing plan where they say that social media and online is very important, and we want to attract people from overseas, and we want to attract new businesses. But they talk the talk, but when it comes to walking the walk, they'll spend the money and do nothing. It's so frustrating, absolutely frustrating.
Now we've got another one of your countrymen in the comments, iForce2D, and I'm sorry I've forgotten your first name. I'm very sorry, Chris. And Chris has just released several videos flying Ardupilot. He's about to do it properly and fly Ardusaur, I hope, because anyone can fly the plane. But it's a pity we didn't get him on here, because Tom is the landing man, Chris. He's there. You can throw comments at him. There he is. He's the landing man code. The landing man. Mine, they all
Speaking of which, there's a lot of issues with landing that people don't understand. So one of the topics on the Unconference that we're doing is I'm going to talk about auto landing.
Yeah, but they always land. You don't actually need code to make anything land. It'll always land.
I hear
Never left one up there.
takeoffs are optional and landings are required.
Yeah.
And I've got to talk to you guys about Ardupilot for my sub 250 gram camera drone project too.
Oh, Tridge has got something for you. You missed it earlier.
That's the board for you.
Show them the
we
board.
now
Show them
support
the
these
board.
little tiny boards, little Revo Mini. Ardupilot now supports that. And so there you go for a little tiny drone. And I actually just got delivery the other day of the 27 gram drone, this little tiny one, which is the Crazy Fly. So it's going to be the smallest drone that Ardupilot flies. And it was funny, I FedEx dropped it at my door just when Tom turned up at the airport here in Canberra. And he was going to pop over to visit me. So the challenge was, could I get Ardupilot booting on it before Tom went to the hotel, had a shower, and came over to my place? And we did. So it's now booting and running Ardupilot. The barometer isn't yet working, so I've got to get the Barrow working. But it's a beautiful little drone, really small. We're heading towards the micro ones. So I'd love to chat to you, Bruce, about what you're doing with the little drones.
So what's going
to... I'd also like to note that Tridge has lots of goodies all over the place here. His bench is a bit legendary. And with Tridge's permission, I'd love to show everyone what his bench looks like.
Turn the camera around.
The problem with my bench is I often buy some bit of equipment meaning to put it. Like I bought an F7, one of the new F7 autopilots, the little racing ones, recently. I bought it like 2 or 3 months ago, meaning to port Ardupilot to it. Then I put it down on my desk to do when we'd done the Shibios port. Now I can't find it, so I just had to order another one. So it often happens that, I've actually got multiple of all sorts of things, but when I can't find them, I just click buy again because they're all so cheap.
I can see the battle of the benches coming up.
There's like an archaeological dig of layers of autopilots on my desk.
So to put my laptop on the table, I had to like push stuff out of the way.
You just get a shovel and just push stuff back to make room.
Here,
my dining room table is totally converted.
I'll do a quick. Let me unplug the power here. So here's Tridge's archaeological dig of stuff.
That's amateur stuff, mate. You've never seen my bench. That's amateur stuff.
This is just where he spends most of his time. I mean, this isn't even
the dining room. We had this. My wife and I were driving back from Sydney, and we were talking about our hobbies because she's into craft and I'm into aero modeling, and so we were thinking of building a shed in the backyard, for our hobbies. We're thinking, we're going to have to air condition it for summer, and we're going to have to, pay. And then we realized, well, why don't we just turn the dining room into a hobby area? And we realized that, we only use the dining room when friends come over occasionally. And we had basically an epiphany. We realized that if any of our friends care about the fact that our dining room is covered in planes, we don't want them as friends. So it's simple. And so, we decided that then and there we would convert the dining room. So the dining room table is a hobby building area now. And it takes me, if we do have people over dinner, it takes me about an hour to clear it off enough to actually them to sit down and have dinner. But that doesn't happen all that often. Usually we end up just sitting at a different table. So, it works. And, I have a very understanding wife. I'm quite lucky that way.
So one of the tasks of the participants at the Unconference is to tidy up the Tridge's desk.
No, they're not allowed to do that.
Find the F7.
No, I'd never find anything.
We're focusing on achievable goals. So,
Agreed. Silver saying in the comments it won't be long until the 150 gram drone, and of course that Sky Viper is 149, isn't it? Is that am I right in saying that?
145 or so, I think. Yeah, it depends if you got the little.
There was some other drone. There was some other drone that was like 25 grams.
Well, right? this little one's 27. Right, when it's fully kitted out with its motors and things. This doesn't obviously don't have the motors on it, but 27 ready to fly.
But then doesn't have HD video with a gimbaling camera, though, does it?
Yeah, that's
no, not quite. Yeah, so if you want that, then
no, but I think it's like $25 or something. It's some super cheap price.
Oh, there are incredibly
most of them full autopilot and everything.
Most of them are like F100s or F3 based boards. We're currently on the F4s. We haven't done a F3 port, and it'd be pretty hard to put Ardupilot on the little F100 based microcontrollers. So I'm not sure we're going to go on those little ones, in the near future.
But surely the roadblock now then is the camera and gimbal to the really light stuff.
Well, the micro drones, digital gimbling is the way to go in the little tiny ones, where you basically just use a high resolution sensor and just use software to subsample down a region of it and stabilize within that region, and that seems the obvious way, the digital gimbling. I mean, it's the larger ones is where you want the physical gimbling, where you're actually rotating it. But I don't know. What's your little drone? You got a gimbal on the little one, Bruce, that you're thinking of doing?
Yeah, I'm working on gimbling. I looked at using larger sensors and taking a subset of the data, but in order to do that, you can have a very wide angle lens, and you find that the spherical distortion becomes unacceptable, and you have to put correction in. And this is something that I want to be affordable and also a DIY project for some people. So the amount of work involved in creating the electronics to do the image processing is beyond the scope of the project. So I'm using some very small motors and a 3D printed frame for the thing, and looking at the RunCam Split Mini, which is a full 1080p 60 frames that comes in at about 22 grams or something. So it's quite practical. It's going to be interesting and tricky, but still practical, I think.
So
and is the gimbal little brushless motors for the gimbal, or are they what, servos, or is it brushless? Okay.
Yeah.
Some CD-ROM motors, right? Right, Bruce?
Smaller than that. Smaller than that.
Smaller than CD-ROM motors?
Yeah, little motors used. And I found another piece of equipment which uses these motors, so I'm trying to track down the source. Otherwise, you can just buy the equipment because it's only about $20 and pull the motors out.
Yeah.
Right. And you have a separate controller for the gimbal, so you'll have a little STM32 that runs the gimbal, or are you running the gimbal
well, I'm
directly
thinking you got a flight
from
controller,
the main flight board?
you got your flight controller, you got your IMU, you got all the stuff there. If you can integrate it into the flight controller software, it makes much more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, just the scheduling. Gimbals are very timing sensitive, and it's a matter of keeping the timing good enough if you're running it on the same CPU that's also flying the vehicle. So not impossible, but a significant challenge.
Yeah, well, we're looking at F4, F7 processors now. We did all this flight stabilization with F1s, running at really low loop times and things. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there must be, you prioritize the tasks. I'm sure you must be able to get it, because you don't need mini quad agility. It just has to be a stable platform.
Right, yeah. So the gimbals, I haven't done a lot with gimbals. We did a bit in the Ardupilot project on things like Solo and stuff like that. And we discovered that the actual CPU requirement to do a good gimbal is, probably more than you need for a flight control, if you really want to do it well, just because the timing requirements are so tight, and the maths to really your state estimation. We ended up with a coupled state estimator where there was a short-term state estimator running on the gimbal CPU, but then the longer-term one coming from the main flight board that has the GPS. And so it's able to do the drift correction, the gyro drift correction, using the main CPU. But it's surprisingly sophisticated maths to do a gimbal really well. But I'll be interested to see how it goes.
Yeah. My philosophy has always been that perfection is the enemy of good enough. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I see people's eyes glazing over here as we do.
And just a question to the flight test guys. Are you thinking about the 250 grams in the models that you bring out into the future?
You bring up a really great question. Absolutely, we are. Matter of fact, probably this month, any day now, we have a whole bunch. Obviously, the Gremlins we've been working with. We love that sub 250 brushless, a little bit bigger than what people come and call tiny whoops, but small enough to still be flown indoors on a 2-cell or have a lot of fun with 3-cell outdoors. That's been really good for us. But now with airplanes, we have a whole line coming out where we're going to be introducing a new power pack to bring micros around that 1104 brushless motor size. And the efficiency, especially on a 3-inch prop, is really nice. You can have a unique experience from 2-cell all the way through 4-cell, depending on how you want to fly. So we got about 3 designs, and we'll be launching the first one, if not this week, probably the next week. So yeah, we're gonna make sure we hit a lot of different models under 250, kind of help our friends across the pond and where registrations and legislation is a little bit harder, but also to kind of future-proof here in the U.S. and also STEM schools too.
Yeah, unfortunately in Australia the threshold's 100 grams, which makes it even more challenging to be the equivalent of the 250 in the US. It's 100 grams in Australia. And some people have actually created little fixed wings under 100 grams that have video and the lot. It's been done, but you got to be pretty damn careful about every gram.
Yeah. Well, it limits your experience as far as being able to use common materials, cheaper materials, things like that. And that's unfortunate. We had a lot of success with STEM, where we're getting into so many STEM schools across the U.S. One thing that we really like is for them to really attack this hobby. They're going to have to attack education eventually, and attack the benefits that Flite in schools brings. So we're really pouring as much, not only from a passion point, but also from a strategic point to try to show how beneficial Flite is when it enters into a young mind in an educational institution. And being below the 250 grams and stuff, the planes really look pretty harmless. It's the drones and planes both look really, inviting. They're quieter. They don't have the impact of the image issues. So we're going to try to expand on that as much as possible, but we're still going to be playing with the bigger ones too.
That previous military vendor that I mentioned, AeroVironment, we're actually pushing for 1 kilo as the first. That was going to be the first bin. It was going to be 1 kilo, but then we've got to blame the sensible Danish for knocking out I think it was a Danish, wasn't it, Bruce, that knocked out the 250 gram thing? It was some country like that there. So that's a pity that's catching hold around the world. So suddenly a kilo seems like all the weight in the world, doesn't it? It seems like the heaviest thing out there.
Unless you're a member of the European Union, that's 80 joules, because we all have a joule meter with us, and we can put, that's an 80 joule model, that's fine, Make a simple task complex, why don't they?
Absolutely. But you had some news on Iceland, and it's not just a supermarket in England, I understand. Apparently it's a country as well. What was the news on Iceland there, Bruce?
Well, they seem to have done it largely right with their regulations. They have really well balanced the rights versus responsibilities. And if you were someone flying models in Iceland, you'd be pretty happy right now, because they seem to have, well, I won't go through all the rules, but there's the only downsides, I think, are you've got to put your name, address, and phone number on your model, but there's only 300,000 people in Iceland, so probably everybody knows everybody anyway. They're all related, I think, aren't they? It's common gene pool. So yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's quite interesting that when you have a little country like this doing the job properly with their limited resources, and you have these huge unions of the European market and the USA and Canada all watching it up to a greater or lesser extent, it shows you that sometimes bureaucracy tends to implode under its own weight, I think. Did you talk about the DJI situation in Australia with the tests yet?
No, which one? I don't think I know what you're talking about. Tell me all about it, Bruce.
DJI have decided, because in conjunction with the CASA and that before you can fly your drone in Australia with the little app, you've got to pass a little test. There's a little knowledge test you have to do before you're allowed to take off. Nanny you? Can they nanny you any further? What is going on there?
Yeah, they rolled that out in the UK last week, I think. Oh no, last month, didn't they, Ian?
Yeah, it was quite recent, and it's a little bit pointless, because you can type any answer, you can get it completely wrong, and you can just keep literally hitting every option until you get it right. And I kind of wish, if you are going to put something in like that, that at least it would say, if you go through it and you've got like 90% wrong, it should say maybe you ought to read the manual before you take off, but it doesn't do anything. So to me, it just struck me as something that they've done to appease regulators, where I think if you're going to do something like that, it'd be nice to put more meat on it and actually have it having some functionality. I mean, DJI obviously wouldn't want it to stop you flying, but I think at least if it's not going to do that, it should say, read the manual. Or even bring up some tutorials, so you clearly don't understand this area, you clearly don't understand this other area, watch this first. But unfortunately, no, it's just a button tapping exercise.
I suppose we're at a time where we've got a great opportunity to drop digital learning in people's laps. When we all went to the flying field and learned to fly, well, you don't know Fred Dibner, is he? And so you're not old enough to have done this. But but when you all went and some old codger taught you to fly down at the flying field, you sort of, learned the stuff generally, and if you were unlucky and you lived miles from anywhere, you had to crash many times yourself. But now we do have a great opportunity to dump training, and which the flight test guys do, and Bruce does, in people's laps. And it seems like that both Bruce and flight test are ahead of the regulators, really, in getting the safety message out there. It's not all that hard. I mean, you want to put signs up at the airfields, don't you, Bruce?
Yeah, a lot of things I want to do.
You're going to disagree, Louis.
Yeah, because the first notice that EASA, European Air Safety Board, has put out this year. So is the notice 01/2018, brings back all the crazy stuff that we have been discussing all these months. So the guys in Iceland can have fun for a few more months until these European new rules come into effect, if they ever come into effect, because the bureaucrats from Brussels or Dusseldorf or whatever they come from are in full action these days. So
did you read the BMFA bulletin though? It sounds like a lot of the stuff is actually going to be, if you're a member of an approved flight organization, you can say no thank you, and also they're going to put up different zones and things, and countries will have a certain degree of autonomy. The BMFA has come out saying basically it's nowhere near as bad as we thought it might be. It's still not as good as we'd like it, but they've been given a lot of latitude by the EAC.
I've read the 41 pages, Bruce. Not very good news on regulations. I have the PDF. I can send you afterwards. Nice reading. These guys are really after Bruce's all over the world, especially in Europe. Glad you're in New Zealand, Bruce.
I can't remember what they want to call it in America, but an organisation that's approved by the FAA. Help me out, Bruce. I can't remember what it's called.
Community-based organisation.
CBOs. That's it. CBOs. A flight test thinking about becoming a CBO? You must be one of the largest member organisations almost over there.
I think in the aviation realm, I think we now are, if you count the community that's subscribed to our channel and through the YouTube. But we want to keep in mind that's people that are subscribing, not paying to be part of it. So
yes,
I think the influence that we are blessed with, does go very far, and we take that very seriously. The answer would be yeah. I think we will be a CBO in the near future. We have a lot of great minds coming into flight test that are not just building big interphone board airplanes, or not just doing video content to give instruction, but also video content and deeper level things to help move the industry forward. So as we get the right people, we'll see it naturally develop out. We're never going to force anything to happen quickly, because that's a good recipe for failure.
Yeah, I think that the flight tests are really, I don't know, I'm not sure what the precise definition of community-based organization is, but we do our our content, and we make some products, and we have our web properties and that sort of thing. But really, it's not anything without our community.
Yeah,
they've really helped make us what we are today. And anything that we've done, whether it be a product or it be the store or it be a project or an event, has just come from feedback from the community, and we do our best to listen to it.
I think if you were to go down, hopefully you just got a scoop there. But if you were to go down that route, I think you would have great success. I think just the very reaction of your crowdfunder has shown that the people are behind you and what you do there. So well done to you. I'm going to try and do the wrap up thing now, because I'm rubbish. Because we've gone 8 minutes past the hour already, and we're holding up you important people.
And we really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, and then also get some time with you. I wanna get to be able to get closer with you guys. I'm really fascinated by all the great projects you're doing, especially with the Ardupilot, that mini that you held up that's going to go in the Kraken. That's fascinating. I really would love to learn more about that as well too.
I'm sure we
sure thing. No worries.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Josh.
Really great meeting you guys. It's incredible. We've followed along what you guys have been doing for years, and it's just inspirational. Fantastic.
Yeah, we're all fanboys. We watch all your videos.
We are. We do. We are.
Well, Josh, get ready to come up with a mini Bixler.
You got it. You got it. We'll just call it the fix.
So before we go, then, does anyone else? I always do this. Does anyone else have anything else that they saw this week that they want to talk about?
I would like to say, if someone in the comments on the video after post, maybe if they want to add suggestions to things that they would like us to talk about at the Unconference, we're open to suggestions of throw things out there. We have all these brains together in the room. Might as well we can talk about something about future plans of Ardupilot or whatnot. So if we're open to suggestions on talking points.
Perfect. Well, have a lovely weekend, and don't imbibe too much thinking juice. I'm sure that would never happen, but have a lovely weekend over there. Bruce, did you have anything before we go?
Find the button. No, actually, I don't. It's been crap weather here, and I've been busy doing all sorts of other stuff. Like I found my bench under, we're talking about the bench wars. I found my bench under a mountain of stuff. I've decided the only way to keep my bench clean is on the first of every month. I've got these big plastic tubs. I'm just going to sweep it all into a tub, label it January, the next month, or February, and then I can go back through the archives as I need to find stuff.
Archive it, yeah.
Archives tub.
Trash bags with like felt pin. You're like, this is January 2018.
Yeah.
The only reason my desk is clear is because we, as you know, we moved this week. That's the only reason my desk is clear. Otherwise, I could have joined in. I feel very bitter about not being able to join in Desk Wars.
You must remember, the golden saying is, from chaos comes creativity.
just keep saying it. Just keep saying it. Yeah, that'll work. All right, with that seems, with chaos comes creativity. That sums us up very well. Thank you very much, dear viewer, wherever you are in the world. Don't forget, like, subscribe, do what else you're supposed to do on the tube with the U. And please join us again next week, 2100 GMT, same time, same black channel, and all those other things. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. Best luck, Factory. See you all again. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.